It's just like lightning in a bottle.
No one involved in this is normal, and that's what makes it fun.
because it really feels like a found family in the best way.
Once upon a time, an author had an idea for a story about a demon and a missing Antichrist, but he didn't know what happened next. So he told his friend about his idea, and a few months later, his friend called back and said, I know what happens next. And what happened next was a story about a great friendship. The friendship started between the authors and flowed into the characters that they wrote. It leapt off the page and into the fandom. It infected the actors who portrayed the characters and called in new fans through 2 seasons of a TV show. This documentary is a tribute to that friendship, both the specific one between the two authors and everything that has been birthed through it.
So some fandoms have names, like Taylor Swift's fans are called Swifties. And I've been debating in my head for months now because this is the sort of thing I can obsess over what Good Omens fans should be called. Should we be Good Omeners? Should we be just Gomeners, Ineffables, Xerocronies, something else? So I'm curious if you all have any ideas of names for the Good Omens fandom.
Say something, I don't know if it's much useful, but, yeah, because I find this question really hard, but I also thought about something to do with Ineffable, because I don't know about the whole fandom, but we have kind of our little nooks in there, and, like, the Euro Gang and the Ineffable Owl Cult is our little language learning clique, so maybe the Ineffables would be fun.
Yeah, the Ineffables was my first thought too, and I thought Gomer's was kinda cute and funny and goofy.
The Gomers one is, yeah, that was the one I was thinking of before.
I had a couple that I'm gonna pitch. Um, the first one is Alpha Centurions. And then, the other one I had, is Principals.
I liked all of those. Ineffables is good. People really love that word in this fandom. I was thinking of good omaniacs. I don't know. That's silly. They're all silly, but that's the point, right?
I might have to make a poll for this.
I think that's a really good idea. That would be a lot of fun.
Welcome to our fellow Ineffables.
I'm Kamapuri. I'm in Michigan in the United States.
Hi, I'm Madman. I'm on the East Coast near Baltimore in the States.
Madman and I met as moderators on Sandaria's discussion server, a Good Omens focused Discord server. I had not read the book prior to watching the first season of the show. My husband had read the book, I believe, and he was the one who suggested we watch the first show or the first season together. So we watched that, thought it was delightful, thought it was done, didn't think about it anymore. Didn't expect there to be a second season at all. And so then I was really surprised when there was because the first season seemed so complete. In any case, watched season two, and as I've heard so many people say, couldn't get it out of my head, kept thinking about it, kept watching all the YouTube videos. Um, and yeah, the algorithm suggested Sandaria's videos. One of the things that I thought in watching Sandaria's videos was like, oh, this is the sort of thing I would like to be able to talk about with other people. Like, this is the sort of, I'd like to be able to have a conversation with a friend who had this sort of sensibility. And so when she started her Discord server, I thought, oh, that's wonderful. There will be a whole bunch of these people all in one place. And so it just seemed like a natural to join up with that community and get to meet other people who I could talk to.
I got into the Good Omens fandom sort of by accident. I had a business trip I was on, a long one, and I asked for friends for lists of shows to watch. And the next one on the list was Good Omens, so I started with that, and I just fell in love with it. Like it was, I I was watching it like every moment I had a chance to have a break. I just binged the whole thing, and then I couldn't, it was insatiable. So I kept looking for YouTube videos and things about it, and that's when I found Sandaria's videos, one of the first ones I found. And then when she started it was like right around when she was starting Discord server. So this was like October timeframe. So I sort of felt like it was the place to be. I feel like I need to be part of this server. So I joined up, and here I am. So.
When the Discord server came into being and when I was sort of down the rabbit hole of trying to learn everything about Good Omens and thinking about it a lot and watching it a lot, I was also going through a pretty tough time in my own life in terms of just kind of some mental health stuff that was going on. So it was a really nice way to have something that just felt connective and positive, just to have this invitation to be a part of the community on the server. And yeah, it just kind of came along at just the right time in my life for that.
We were so amazed by the community that we were witnessing on the server that we were inspired to create this film to feature all the goodness coming out of the fandom.
I'm Sandaria, and I am in the little tiny state of Maine. After the end of the season, I went online to try to find somebody to talk to about it. And I didn't have an active Tumblr account or anything at the time. So I went on YouTube, and there was nothing pretty much at the time. And I wanted it so badly, I decided I would make it myself. Again, I wanted to talk to people about ideas I was having, and there was nobody to talk to. My husband liked the show, but he didn't want to he didn't want to get into that kind of deep conversation about especially what it all might be leading to in season 3. He wasn't that interested. So I started again, I was just making the content I wanted to see. It was really just a right place, right time kind of thing because a lot of other people were coming into the fandom with the same thing. I want to see this. Like my first few videos only maybe had a couple of hundred views, and there were so many comments. That's what I realized people wanted to talk. They didn't want to just watch my videos. They were there to be part of a community, which is why I realized pretty quickly that a Discord server would be a good idea. This is the first time I've ever become so interested in something that I wanted to create in the same universe in the world at this level where I can't stop. I don't have a better explanation. It's everything involved. The fact that Terry and Neil became friends over this, and then Michael and David became friends over this, and we talked about this before once. And then, all of us are becoming friends. There's just something about it, and it's kind of magical.
I'm Kani, and I'm in Germany, in northern Germany. For me personally, this is really the first fandom where I'm involved like this. Yeah, I've, as you said, been a fan of many things, but I've never really been in any online fandom spaces interacting with other people. I've written some fan fiction of other stuff before, but I've also read fan fiction and maybe looked up YouTube videos and stuff, but I've never joined any community or anything. But still, I think this specific community is so much more than a fandom space at this point, especially the Discord server. I mean, yes, every conversation somehow starts with Good Omens, but we branch out so much and talk about so many other things now by this point. And yeah, it's been 6 months for me, not even 6 months, and I feel like I know some people for forever because we just chat so much about everything. And I think that's really special, yeah.
I'm River. I'm in Texas in the United States. I discovered the book or the audiobook years and years ago. I had known who Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman were independently, and when I discovered they wrote a book together, I was interested in it, listened to it, and then when the first season came out, I enjoyed it, but it was like the second season that really like hooked me and wanted me to get involved with the fandom.
I'm Laura, and I'm in Indiana in the Midwest US. I'd been going through some stuff, and I'd been talking to my therapist about how I felt like I was kind of emotionally disengaging from a lot of stuff in my life, and I wanted to like find a way back into that connection. And like especially numbing behaviors, it's easy to just pick up your phone. We watched the second season, me and my husband. We got to the end, the credits rolled, and I did what I always do. I pick up my phone. I was like, all right, that was fun. And then I realized that the story wasn't over. They were still on the screen. And they were inviting me to engage. So I put my foot down and or my phone down, and I actually watched, and it got me. The next day I made like a playlist of songs that, made me feel the feels. And I started doing a cosplay, and I just like it kept building. I haven't really gotten involved with other online fandoms, and not super for lack of trying. I was in college in the early days of the internet forums. I'd gotten on other things, and pretty quickly you just like get bullied by somebody, and that just tends to be internet culture. And I just didn't want to put up with that, so I would just see my way out. And I think that that's true of a lot of internet spaces. In the first several weeks being on Sandaria's server, I just noticed that everybody was so nice and kind and supportive. But the day that it really clicked for me, I think, was when somebody got into one of the channels that I spend a lot of time in. They were a little aggressive and kind of being dismissive of people's ideas. We tried to gently redirect them, and eventually we're like, hey, maybe this is we tend to try to be like XYZ here. Everyone else kind of backed it up. It wasn't like I was a lone wolf kind of setting that culture. It was like a culture that we were all creating together. That's when it clicked for me that like, oh, this isn't, because when you first see a troll, you're like, okay, well, we had a good run, but this is what the space is going to become now. But that didn't happen. It hasn't happened.
I've met people I talk to so often now that it's hard to imagine there was a time I didn't. People from all kinds of different corners of this world. Lovely internet strangers who have become friends to me.
I heard a lot of people say that this group, and for me it's kind of been a bit the same, is the first time that we really found like friendship spaces or people where just feel like our people, so that you kind of feel understood and you can just talk and know that the other people will get you because they think the same way.
I never see people like me represented in media. With the Good Omens community, you see all these people coming together, and I think it's just a genuinely beautiful thing. The Good Omens community is like, in a way, sort of like a second family to me. It's just a truly beautiful place to be, and it's a truly beautiful thing to be a part of. It just feels like home.
But I've never seen a space where the average of queer people is this high. And I come from musical theater, and even that is no comparison to the server. So I think that's also another thing that maybe we all have in common. Yeah, and the other big thing is I think neurodiverse people. We are also a lot of us in the server, and that's also It comes with a lot of shared experience and, yeah, stuff to talk about.
It just feels good, gives you courage, self-esteem to be yourself, to live as yourself. That's what it did for me. It's giving me courage to be myself. I came out as non-binary and I was very afraid to. And I'm still afraid to live as non-binary, but Good Omens itself, the characters and the whole fandom still helps me to keep going.
Something about why this show, because you said this show isn't really, it's not about that, but um it's unapologetically queer because it's not a big thing, and I think that makes you watching it feel like, yeah, it's just normal. And as devastated as we all were about season 2, I think ultimately it's a comfort show. You feel like those characters are friends, and then of course the people who also feel like that start becoming your friends when you talk to them.
I found people that are now a very big part of my life. I love the fact that we are all so different, from different cultures, but having a good time and sometimes deep connections in a world where the other is seen, wrongly, as a danger. That warms my heart and makes me believe in humanity again. As a neurodivergent person, it's very relaxing to be with people like me or who understand what/who I am. Before Good Omens, the fandom, and the Discord, I was isolated like a lot of neurodivergent/disabled people. Now I feel accepted and like I have a place somewhere.
No one involved in this is normal, and that's what makes it fun. Everyone here is either queer, neurodivergent, or both, and that brings so much flavor to everything. I'll scroll through fan art and I'll see 3 different interpretations of Crowley with 3 different sexualities and genders, and we're all just having fun with it. Yeah, the homophobes aren't welcome on this thing. It's bent as frick.
I'm starting to discover and accept so much about myself just by meeting people who share very similar experiences. Namely, the whole "I guess I'm not neurotypical" journey.
I have never been in such a caring, giving, and creative fandom, and being in the Good Omens family helped me feel more confident after finding out I was autistic a few years ago, because there's so many people like me in the fandom.
I feel like there are, before I even know why, there are scenes in each season that I will just start rewatching because they they make me feel something, and I'm still trying to work it out. And it's not until you've seen it several times that you're like, "Oh, that's why that's hitting me so hard." And the one I kept coming back to in season 2 was the final scene of Companion to Owls. There's just something about it that's so compelling to me. I mean, there's a lot of things about it that are compelling to me. Um, but I think I'm realizing more and more as I get into the fandom that a lot of us have or continue to experience loneliness on some level, or like that we're missing a connection somewhere. And even if it's in a small tiny part of our life, like there's a part of you that's reaching out and you haven't quite grabbed onto somebody else, so a kindred spirit yet. And I think that that's a big theme in the show that really speaks to and draws in a lot of people in the fandom.
I have autism, and I only got diagnosed 2 years ago. I've had plenty of special interests and hyperfixations in that time, and for most of my life, I've been told to be quiet or talk about something else. I rarely had opportunities to discuss with people who shared these interests, because most of them didn't really have an easily accessible fandom. I joined the Good Omens fandom in November. There was so much to explore, but I was sure that nobody would ever really want to hear it. But I was so wrong. I don't think I've ever seen a fandom as incredibly dedicated to talking about everything related to the object of their obsession. The analyses, the speculation, the fanfic, the excited screaming when literally any news comes out. I felt like I fit right in. Nobody was telling me to be silent. People were providing counterpoints or providing further evidence or just plain listening. I love the people in this fandom so much. You all have made me feel so much more confident in myself. Like I'm actually someone worth listening to.
It speaks to a lot of outsider experience, and you can, whatever you identify as yourself, you can sort of find that in the show. So it's not a specific outsider identity. There's definitely religious ones also included. And I don't want to underplay age either, because how often do you see middle-aged uh folks portrayed, especially in a romantic relationship? Um, so, and I mean, I understand that in the show, they're, you know, eons old, but in real life, of course, being actors in their 50s. And I think that that actually is sort of appealing, because we want to think that we can be like that when we get older too. Um, so even younger people see that, and they that's like a life goal almost. To not everything is about like when you're younger.
One of the cool things that I've seen a lot of is people who may or may not in their, in their real life have opportunities to be looked up to, or to teach others or care about others in a way that they want to have the opportunity, like people who like lend advice about about art, or self-care and things like that. Um, or even just being an inspiration to somebody else because they feel bold enough to participate in certain aspects of the server or different displays. And so they get, they have other people who look up to them and say, hey, I did this because I saw you do this and it made me feel brave enough to do it myself. So I think that's really neat. Not neat, that's an underestimation. It's profound, I think. That's a better word. It's profound because people, myself included, I've had a chance to do things that have helped other people in ways that may or may not be available to me in my current life. So I think that's really neat.
The sort of being able to mentor, I've seen a lot of that happening with um, people talking about aspects of neurodivergence and exploring their sexuality, gender expression, and also with chronic illness and different ability levels. And people sort of, it's not like there's one mentor figure and one figure who's being mentored. Like the roles are very fluid. Somebody who comes in and thinks that they're there to be supported becomes the supporter in the next moment. And it's really cool to see how that just moves around fluidly and just seems to happen so naturally.
I think one of the things that makes the server so special is that it's curious, not judgmental. So people are yes anding each other. It's like an improv game, Instead of shooting each other's ideas down, it's like, okay, well, I'm not sure I understand totally, but I'm interested. Tell me more. And then you bring your experience to build on what somebody else does. And before you know it, you've got a Nazira Crepes weekend or whatever.
I love all the art that is coming out of the fandom and out of the server in particular. I grew up in a little town that was very art heavy, like there were a lot of art galleries, a lot of people making art and thinking about it not only helps the artist to process, who they are and how they experience the world, but also helps make connections between individual people and help bring community together. And I see that here in this server.
I feel like often when you put out any art stuff somewhere on the internet, it's like maybe someone will notice it, maybe not. But if you mention anything here, 100 people come in and say and give feedback, give their input to it. Or I've seen people create something and other people take that same idea and interpret it in their own way. And there's just so much, yeah, creative artworks and not just paintings or stories, but everything happening here. And with the talent show, that was definitely one moment where we saw all that piled together, and it was a little bit ridiculous, but also amazing.
Being a server that is built around fandom, it only attracts people who have a natural level of enthusiasm because we're all enthusiastic about Good Omens at a minimum. So then when there's an opportunity to do something creative, we're all like, oh, yes, yes, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this.
I feel like I've been the most creative within the fandom as we're all like in this sort of bottle together, uh, creating with other people. and bouncing ideas off of others. It's not, we're not in a vacuum, and we bounce ideas off of each other all the time. We help each other with our cosplays. We're planning to do photo shoots together and stuff. It's great. And then one day randomly, this Goat user jumped in one of the servers, and she was into rap and hip hop like I am. And so we decided we were going to do these rap parodies, and we ended up just doing a rap battle of the Metatron versus Crowley. And it was so much fun. And I hope we could do more of those because I had a blast. But like, if there hadn't been somebody else who had that same weird, like very specific niche thing that they wanted to do that we could play in the sandbox together, I don't know that I ever would have given it a shot.
I really enjoyed the opportunity to kind of work collaboratively with people who have similar interests with me. There's a level of respect among everybody, common goals, and there's like no pressure, which is I think the best part is that everybody's just here to have fun. So
And I feel like there's something to just the idea that we all want good omens in our lives. We want there to be literally like good omens, something good to work towards. And, uh, you know, having a space that brings us all in where we can be creating good omens together is, yeah, there's something really powerful to that.
Even things like the little foodie channel, like that has been so fun. It's really kind of helped me expand how I interact with learning to cook fun things, and I've enjoyed that.
On another level, it's been so touching to me how people feel open and vulnerable to share that art. Because I've seen with most of my friends and people in the channel, the first time they share something, they're terrified. You know, it's like you're bearing your soul to people and you don't know how they're going to react. But just seeing them gradually get more comfortable and share more and just like have that confidence, that's been really beautiful to see.
I've seen people post like things they've doodled in the margins of their like lined notebooks, when they're maybe at school or listening to a lecture or something, and they've posted something like that, and people adore it. And I found that really comforting because I think that one of the major purposes of art, not only just to kind of make people think about things or feel a certain way, is to bring people together.
I think part of the reason that a lot of us are still in it is because it's like an echo chamber almost for us, where like you kind of like fade away from it for a little bit or whatever, but then something happens and you come back. And I think a lot of the creation that's occurring is because we have this kind of special realm that we can bounce ideas off each other and get feedback and reinforcement of those things. It's like lightning in a bottle, but I think it's like a whole thunderstorm, a whole lightning storm, because we have all these ideas that keep, coming back around.
Having people to share with that you could have the expectation that they would be supportive and that it would be received and that it wouldn't just sort of go into the vacuum. So
The show and seeing what people have created around it, the art, the edits, everything. It's just inspired me so much, and because of that inspiration, I've been able to improve my own art greatly. I've also gotten positive comments about my art, which really means a lot to me and gets me excited to keep creating.
When the first season came out, I enjoyed it, but it was like the second season that really like hooked me and wanted me to get involved with the fandom. And the second season, I felt compelled to write fan fiction. Had to write something to like heal my soul after the end of the second season. And so that was kind of like my inroad into the fandom, was like I needed to write something to get that, up and out. And I popped right in and found a writers group, and just really enjoyed the group that I found there as people who are writing and sharing what they were writing. So yeah.
I saw somebody on Goad today that was like, "Oh, I haven't painted in 6 years, but I felt moved to do this painting of Crowley." And it was like the most incredible thing I've seen. It was gorgeous. I'm like, professional level painting. And I'm like, good for you for getting back to this because you clearly like have a gift.
For me, I attach to Good Omens so much that it's given me an explosion of creativity for fan art, fanfics, and fan edits that I hadn't had in a long time. And it made me discover music from the 40s to 90s that I would never have listened to if not for this show. And Queen has now become one of my favorite bands of all time. Good Omens is my favorite piece of media ever, and I cannot wait for season 3.
Yeah, I'm a part of the little writers group that River has mentioned, and I hadn't done any creative writing in years. I think had I ever done any fanfic? I don't think I had. I read a little bit of X-Files fanfic ages ago. So I was familiar with it a little bit, but yeah, I got into writing fanfic, and it was just such an enjoyable way to connect with creativity and have a way to share it with other people and not have it just be a solitary experience.
It's brought me joy in little ways, whether it's listening to a Nightingale in Berkeley Square again or drawing the characters. It's a simple story that has meant so much.
I know I've painted around years ago in school, like over 10 years ago, but I haven't touched any of that in years. And this fandom alone made me want to do that again. So that's maybe a little thing that has changed for me. And the other more profound thing maybe is, of course, the people that I've gotten to know here. That, yeah, some of them I feel like are real friends now. And now I'm starting to tear up because it makes me emotional. Yeah. And I'm also learning a lot about myself. Definitely.
I've rediscovered joy in a hobby I had quit for years through fan art and found a general new need to be creative.
I haven't really been in fandoms before. This is the first fandom I have, of course, been a fan of a great many things. I studied theater, I studied cultural anthropology, I love mythology and storytelling. I watch a ton of TV shows. I like to go to theater. Big fan of stories, me. But yeah, this was the first thing that, as you all were saying, really like bit me in a way where I wanted to create. And I think that every single person I've come across in the fandom, that's been the case for them. I don't know a single person that I've met that isn't creating in some way in the fandom.
So I went to school. I got a degree in art, and I knew I wasn't probably going to do anything with it. I just wanted to do it because somebody told me when I was young, go to school for something you enjoy, not for something that you want to make you money. I don't know if it's good advice or not, but I had fun. But that being said, I don't do anything with art now in my real life. So this server has been great because it's kind of given me an excuse, a chance to kind of leap forward into like digital art. I bought a digital drawing pad because I used Photoshop before, but never with that. So that's kind of cool. And then it's given me a chance to use like video skills that I'd gained over the years, project management skills, and different things like that.
There's such a range of art that's coming from it too. And the number of people that have told me that they haven't created in years, and then this has given them the spark to do it again. I mean, it's just so beautiful to me.
This fandom has been bringing me comfort since 2019, and I have needed it several times. So I am extremely grateful that I found it, that I'm part of it, and yeah, comforting. Love them to bits, and I am a better person because of them.
I think a lot of, or for me anyway, a lot of it is, the message of the media that's kind of come out of Good Omens is almost a universal human one. It's what is it like to be human and have to make these daily decisions about how you want to live in the world and be in the world, and how you want to interact with the people around you, and the systems that you're living in. And I think, at least for me, a point of connection with people on the server and elsewhere in Good Omens is that we're all kind of like figuring that out, and um, doing so in a way that is kind of uh, using the book or the show or whatever to kind of sort of wonder about that and think about those sorts of things. And I think that's an interesting connection for people from everywhere of all ages. It's, what does it mean to be alive in this space in this time, and how we are dealing with that. And then from there, friendships and conversations about everything happen. I mean, I've had great conversations about how to make pancakes or how to write a character arc, or so even though we've kind of started with processing our feelings around what can be sort of big heavy topics, I think it's kind of given us like a space to come in and make connections on a more individual or personal level.
We have one space on the show where we started to kind of celebrate everyday tasks because it's such a thing you don't talk about, struggling to, I don't know, put on the dishwasher or something stupid like that. But I think that's so nice that we started to do that actually, and to say, today I did this and today I did that, and everybody's kind of cheering each other on for those little things. It's a small thing, but it makes some mundane days easier somehow, and that's something really, really nice.
One night I was having a hard time and I was trying to avoid talking to someone by being busy talking to other people and just asked if anyone was free to chat. And almost immediately someone just said, I got you. And we started talking. I find it so cool and it means a lot to me that because of this silly show, I and many others have found a community to support each other and just have a good time with it.
There's a lot of like, oh, okay, this person seems like they're having a hard time. What part of the world are they in? Is there anybody in that part of the world that's awake right now that could reach out to them? Things like that. So not just making sure people are following the rules, but also making sure people are safe or happy or healthy, and checking in with people. Like if there's people that we haven't talked to in a while, like, hey, we know you were struggling before. Have you been okay? And that type of thing. So I think that sort of all ties together in building that sense of community.
That somebody maybe wasn't that active as usual, which we are all spend too much time here, so it's okay if somebody is absent for a while and tends to their real life. But in that moment when we started in that group to notice that and to point it out, everybody was kind of chipping in then and saying, "Oh yeah, I was also worried. And I thought maybe you can't ask this now because it's normal to take time off." And we started to realize that, yeah, we're also on the same page there, and everybody is kind of afraid to say too much, but at the same time does care about the others, and that was kind of a very wholesome moment.
I've noticed that there isn't this tendency to kind of pile in and being like, "Hey, you did a bad thing." It's more kind of like, "Hey, I noticed you're like having these emotions. Are you okay? Or can we like calm it down and maybe talk about it? Or do you want to take this to a DM?" But I've noticed that even if somebody's having a moment where they've kind of forgotten themselves, you know, people have come in and said, "Hey, it's all right. Just gonna calm it down and talk about it that way," which I really appreciate because you don't find that everywhere on the internet. It's been a nice thing to observe.
On a more personal note, I think that a lot of us have someone that we would consider a kin in the show. For most people, it's usually Crowley or Aziraphale or both, but it can be anybody. I see a little bit of myself in Muriel sometimes and other characters. But there's almost nobody that I've seen in media that I identify with more than Crowley. And the more that I like think about his characterization, what he's been through, how he relates to other people, what his reactions are to negative and positive situations. Like every time I read a fan fiction where somebody has a different take on him, I learn something new about myself that I hadn't really discovered before. I started reading a book with my husband, and there was a chapter about, it was actually about trauma, but talking about how exploring media is a great way to work through some traumatic things because there's often not a real world analog for the emotional experience that you had if you've been through something bad. And I think that that's very true. I think that sometimes we can connect and learn something emotionally about ourselves that we can't, point to something in the real world and explain what happened to us or how we feel. And then the more you explore that media analog, you like, oh, I'm like that. Oh, this is how, and then you understand yourself better. So Good Omens has been that for me, and that has meant a lot to me in the past 6 months or so.
The Good Omens fandom has helped me a lot, because before I got into Good Omens, I had very much trouble with finding and connecting with my feelings. I would be numb 24/7. Then I got into Good Omens, and it basically brought back all of my happy feelings. So, thank you to Good Omens, to the fandom, whoever, for helping me feel again.
I recently got out of a long-term relationship. Um, it's been a minute. It's been over a year now, but it came at a good time because it was kind of a perfect show to help process a lot of the feelings that I had, and all the stuff that the community had too, like the different playlists and stuff that people put together, and the different art and the stories and things like that. Sort of helped me come to terms with what that relationship meant to me. What does it mean now that it's over? What does it mean, my relationship with that person still? What kind of situation are we in? So I would say that is part of it. And then also exploring different parts of gender identity, gender expression. What does that mean for me? And I've always liked theater and stuff, so being able to present myself and be comfortable wearing different clothing and stuff, that be comfortable with people looking at me differently or whatever that means, um, has been an interesting aspect that I had not anticipated occurring at this point in my life. So I appreciate the fact that this community has kind of given me the chance to try on some of these different personas and see what fits, what doesn't.
In early 2022, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was pretty difficult because I have a kid, I have a husband, and it was scary. And it was a whole year of just pushing forward. Like, I really identify with Aziraphale and the show must go on kind of thing because there was no time to ever process it. It went on and on and on, for a long time. But uh, I was I was given a clean diagnosis, but it was more than a year of just trying to pretend that nothing bad was happening while something horrible was happening, and I was trying to keep my family feeling as normal as possible, and not ever really dealing with what happened or what was happening to me and my family. I mean, it was rough. So, came out of it, and it's weird because afterwards you think there's celebration and relief, but at the same time there's this grief because you've lost something, but it's hard to articulate exactly what's happening. And so it's something I just never really dealt with. And then it was kind of a 1-2 punch because my mother passed away in June of 2023, so only a few months later. And I moved. We were literally sleeping on the floor of our old house when she passed away because our moving van was packed. So we moved 2 days later, and I had to drive 6 days across the country, 8 to 10 hour days driving. There was no time for me to process that either. And so when I got where we're living now, this show came out about a month later, and it turns out so that is a lot of what's happening for me. I know I made a couple of things that essentially I just sat kind of sobbing about after I created something, but it was very cathartic. It helped me process my own grief and feel more in touch with all of these things that I had been through, the loss of my mother, especially because there is at least the fear of loss in the show. And so being able to connect with that, also that sort of timeless love, which I think parents and children do have. I do think it helped me get through something that I didn't even know I had to get through because I had sort of jumped over it. I had pushed through all this stuff, but it was still all there. So it was really helpful to process all of that emotion. You jump into this fandom in this community, and the next thing you know, you have people you would consider close friends, and I couldn't be more grateful for that.
I think there really is something in this community of being able to come together and whatever stuff we've all got going on. It is really healing to be with other people and just to be focusing on what we can do, what we can create, how we can move forward and have life. You know, I know that for me, that's been really helpful. It's big stuff to be working through, and that we're able to work through it together and find other people that we can connect to in a way that it feels good to work through that. That's amazing.
We just keep going, like, keep trending on Twitter and Tumblr, and we walk away from the fandom for a week or two, and then we come back and we're doing more art and more cosplay, and we just never seem to give up on it. It just keeps going.
I just feel like love is sort of at the heart of a lot of the themes in this show and what we show for each other, at least on the Discord server. So
long may the fandom family continue to the world.
In one word, the Good Omens fandom community is special for me.
It would have to be family.
Comforting.
If I could describe the Good Omens community in one word, I would describe it as lovely.
Ineffable.
Wholesome. The Good Omens fandom is very wholesome.
Compassionate.
The one word I would use for describing Good Omens community would be ineffable for obvious reasons.
One word.
I think care.
Jovial.
Ineffable.
Weird.
And entertainment.
Indefatigable.
And humor.
Passionate.
Friendship.
Home or family.
So many things.
Ineffable.
Love.
Magic.